understanding is that the posting starts on today. So, hi, good morning. How are you doing?
I got my stuff in the,
Awesome.
and essentially, as soon as most people clear out, I'll
Yeah.
set my stuff. And I think, well, we could try using it. Well, actually,
What do you like?
uh,
I've got the bookends.
yeah, and I'm thinking, I'm not sure if I want to sit down or stand up. And I think what I could do is I've got a folding stool.
Yeah, that's fine.
But that's in my truck.
Well, we can use it.
Yeah.
Okay.
The chair might be a little bit too low.
Oh,
Thing. But
alright. I'm gonna grab myself some water before we start.
no. Yes. No. First week in August. Yeah.
Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Society. We are grateful to gather on this beautiful morning, both in person and online, for a time of inspiration, reflection, and connection. Whether you join us today with joy in your heart, weighted with burdens, or searching for meaningful connections, we are glad that you are here. I'm the Reverend Diana Smith, the minister of the Unitarian Universalist Society, and my pronouns are she and her. I'm a somewhat tall, white woman in my mid-40s with short, curly white and brown hair, purple glasses, a greenish dress, and a very colorful stole standing in UUS's pulpit at the front of our sanctuary. Our sanctuary is filling with people of many ages, and through the window walls of our sanctuary, where we connect to the outdoors, where we can see that it is a beautiful, cool but warming up summer day. As we gather, we give thanks for this land and all who have cared for it over the centuries, particularly the Kickapoo, the Iowa, the Sauk and Meskwaki, and the Oceti-Sakowin nations. As people of many ages, genders, races, sexual orientations, classes, abilities, and health statuses, we know how important it is to come together as a radically welcoming spiritual community. As Unitarian Universalists, our faith expresses our core value of love through how we agree to be together and to support each other. We are guided by the shared principles, sources, and values of our living religious tradition. This morning, as we practice curiosity about the other, we will celebrate and explore our value of generosity and our principle of creating a world community of peace and justice. If you're newer to our congregation, we invite you to learn more about us after the service. For those who are here in person, there will be greeters in the atrium who can share, who can talk with you. And for those of you who are online, there's a link to the visitor form in our YouTube notes that will let us connect with you. And so as we begin, I share with you some words from Octavia Butler, who wrote, "All that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is change." And so, let us begin by joining our voices in song. We'll sing Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. It's number 361 in the gray hymnal, and the words will also be on the screens. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and join Alex and Virginia.
Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
Good morning. I'm Jenna Soot Montgomery. I'm a worship associate, and my pronouns are she and her. I am also a white woman in my mid-40s, but I promise that is not a requirement for doing this up here. As Unitarian Universalists, we light a flame within a chalice as a symbol of sanctuary and safety, to unite us in worship and to remind us of our ongoing search for the light of truth. This morning, Ellie and Naima will be writing our chalice. Please join me in saying our chalice lighting words. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the wonder and mystery of this great gift. So let us now kindle the flame of our liberal religious heritage and renew our covenant of mutual love and care. Love is our doctrine, the quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, and to serve those in need, this we promise, this we covenant with life and one another. Each week, we also light a candle for justice and healing to acknowledge our interdependence with the natural world and with all members of the global community, especially the most vulnerable. We light this candle so that we may not be numbed to injustice and trauma, but rather find strength, courage, and love as we work in solidarity with others for liberation, justice, and healing. Together, we create resilience and hope. Today, we light this candle for all those people and other animals and trees and other plants facing the rampant wildfires in Canada. We are especially mindful of the many First Nation and Métis communities who have been denied the ability to use Indigenous controlled burn practices to prevent wildfires and are disproportionately impacted by the wildfires in Canada this summer, including the Atikamekw, the Mikisew Cree, the Athabasca Chipewyan, the Algonquin, and the East Prairie Métis. As I light this candle, let's hold a time of silence to listen to our hearts and bodies, or perhaps to lift up prayers.
Okay. So our story today is one of my favorites, actually. It is called The Day You Begin by Jacqueline Woodson. All right. It's got some really beautiful illustrations. And it starts. There will be times when you walk into a room and there is no one there quite like you. Maybe it will be your skin, your clothes, or the curl of your hair. There will be times when no one understands the way the words curl from your mouth, the beautiful language of the country you left behind. My name is Rigoberto. We just moved here from Venezuela. And because they don't understand, the classroom will fill with laughter until the teacher quiets everyone. Rigoberto, from Venezuela, your teacher says, so soft and beautiful that your name and homeland sound like flowers blooming the first bright notes of a song. There will be times when the words don't come. Your own voice, once huge, now smaller, when the teacher asks, "What did you do last summer?" Tell the class your story. "We went to France," Kayla says. "These shells came from a beach in Maine." A boy named Jonathan holds a jar filled with the shells so fragile they look like they'll turn to dust in your own untraveled hands. "My whole family went to India, to Spain, South Carolina." Each souvenir a small triumph of a journey, their travels going on and on. And as you stand in front of that room, you can only remember how the heat waved as it lifted off of the curb, and your days spent at home caring for your little sister, who made you laugh out loud and hugged you hard at nap time. You can only remember the books you kept on reading long after she had fallen asleep. And in that room, where no one else is quite like you, you'll look down at your own empty hands and wonder, what good is this when other students were flying and sailing and going somewhere? Has anybody ever felt like that? I've felt like that sometimes. Wondering what good it is to tell my story when it was different. And there will be times when the lunch your mother packed you is too strange or too unfamiliar for others to love as you do. When even, these are some great pictures, aren't they? I like them too. There are lots of colors. Yeah. When even your own friend Nadia will wrinkle her nose and say, "What's in there?" "He's fine. We're good." Yeah. Do you want to come up here? Come here. Okay. You can help me. All right. Where even your own friend Nadia will wrinkle her nose and say, "What's in there anyway?" And you'll wonder how she doesn't see the rice beneath the meat and it's not quite as interesting up here, is it? Yeah, I get that. But you can stay here if you want to. Yeah. Okay, as long as you just, stay back here. Good job. Okay, not too close to the candle. All right. Okay. And you'll wonder how, okay, a little bit more of an adventure. All right. And you'll wonder how she doesn't see the rice beneath the meat and the kimchi. You'll wonder why she doesn't remember that rice is the most popular food in the world. There will be times when the climbing bars are too high, the run is too fast and far, the game isn't the one that you can ever really play. I don't want him on our team. You can watch. Maybe you can have a turn later. There will be times when the world feels like a place that you're not standing all the way outside, that you're standing all the way outside of. Yeah, sometimes it does feel like we're standing all the way outside of the world. Yeah, that happens. And all that stands beside you is your own brave self. Steady as steel and ready, even though you don't yet know what you're ready for. And I kind of like how this kid sees a reflection of themselves with that book open. There will be times when you walk into a room and no one there is quite like you until the day you begin to share your stories. My name is Angelina, and I spent the whole summer with my little sister, you tell the class, your voice stronger than it was a minute ago, reading books and telling stories, and even though we were right on our block, it was like we got to go everywhere. Stories can open a world. Your name is like my sister's, Rigoberto says. Her name is Angelina too. And all at once in the room where no one else is quite like you, the world opens itself up a little wider to make some space for you. This is the day you begin to find the places your laughter and your lunches, your books, your travel, and your stories, where every new friend has something a little like you and something else so fabulously not quite like you at all. And that is the end. And so, that's one of my favorite stories because I think a lot of times many of us feel like there's nobody quite like us, because there isn't. But when we tell our stories, we can start to learn about each other and find that we're not so different, and we are different, and that's all wonderful. So with that, you all have some religious education classes that you can go to. So let's sing our kids out to Ari.
Yes, and the eggs are sitting right there on the table if
Okay.
you want to grab an egg. Or maybe, David, if you don't mind helping. Thank you.
Be open for something wonderful to happen. Be open to the possibility. Be open for something wonderful to happen. Be open to the possibility. Aye, 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 aye. Be open for something wonderful to happen. Be open for the possibility. Be open for something wonderful to happen. Be open to the possibility. Aye, 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 aye.
As we enter into our time of meditation, contemplation, and prayer, we acknowledge the joys and sorrows of our congregation. We do this by dropping stones into a bowl of water, symbolically immersing our personal joys and sorrows into the flow of all life's joys and sorrows. The water surrounds and holds the stone, just as we are surrounded and held by the love and support of this congregation. If you're participating in our service elsewhere, you may wish to meditatively hold a stone or wash your hands or meditate on an object near you. And now, if you're in the sanctuary, we invite you to come forward, take a stone from the basket, and place your stone in the water as we sing together.
Your joy is my joy, your sorrow my sorrow. Together we live our days, together we love this place in beloved community. We are not alone. Your joy is my joy, your sorrow my sorrow. Together we live our days, together we love this place in beloved community. We are not alone. Your joy is my joy, your sorrow my sorrow. Together we live our days, together we love this place in beloved community. We are not alone. Beloved community, we are not alone.
I invite you into a time of meditation, contemplation, and prayer. Spirit of love, who we know by so many names and in so many faces and places. We come here today carrying so much and feeling the so muchness around us. We come with heartbreaks and worries, feeling alone and feeling too much togetherness. We come needing rest and needing change. And we come to, with so much gratitude for being able to be here, to connect, to feel the energy around us, to notice that we are not alone, that our joys and our sorrows are carried together. In this day and this time as we gather, perturbing one, help us be stirred up. Help us find some different perspective, some new way of being with each other and with the world that gives us new energy, new connection, that helps us tap into the love that surrounds us every single moment. Amen. Blessed be.
Our reading this morning is by the activist, educator, and poet Sonia Sanchez, and it's a poem she wrote for the Black musical collective Sweet Honey in the Rock. I will spare you singing, though. You're welcome. See me through your own eyes. I am here. Don't look for me in poems. I'm not there. Don't look for me in shadowy faces. I'm not there. See me through your own eyes. I am here. Once, when or with whom I disappeared, went into hiding behind my own skull, wasn't seen for a decade or two. Wasn't seen for a decade or two. Now I'm back, carrying my life in a small bag. Now I'm back, holding open my hands, holding open my hands. See me through your own smile. I'm here. See me through your own smell. I am here. See me through your own eyes. I am here.
To be known, to be seen for who we are is one of our deepest human desires. That, along with the need to make meaning of the things that happen in our lives and the world, and to figure out how to live our values, are some of the main reasons that we come to congregations. In being seen, witnessed, or understood, we often come to know ourselves more, and thus come to know our values more. Of course, the opposite is also true. We don't always feel seen or understood, or sometimes when we are seen, it seems that someone else rejects part of us. And sometimes we reject part of someone else. Sometimes we do that without even consciously realizing that we're doing it, often because of assumptions and prejudices that we don't even know are there. And sometimes we don't know the questions to ask to help someone share themselves with us. It can seem like there's a yawning chasm that we have to find a way to cross to get to know one another. Their hopes and dreams, what inspires them, their fears. Which is odd. When we share bodies that are so similar, when we are deeply connected by the energy that moves between us. If we're in the same space, we're interacting with the same physical forces, our matter and energy playing with one another. And if we're interacting across the virtual world, in some ways, something even more incredible is happening. As streams of ones and zeros, streams of energy become words and images, influencing each other's hearts and minds. Goodness gracious, what a miracle that is. And so, though, what is a person to do about that yawning chasm that seems to open up between us when we want to get to know one another? Especially after the last few years of pandemic separation and the scourge of distrust and division that have infected our world when these things settle in front of us. Well, as my friend and colleague C.V. Beale starts with, don't believe everything you think. Yes. Let me repeat that in case you missed it. Don't believe everything you think. Is that really a yawning chasm between the two of us, or just enough space to be comfortable? Is it an uncrossable barrier, or just a face mask, some gloves? Is it really that you don't know what to say to someone with a different culture, educational background, or family structure? Or is it that our culture hasn't given us the tools to speak with each other well? Or even sometimes tries to keep us from knowing each other because doing so maintains the status quo, maintains old systems of hierarchy, power, and control. If it's the latter, as so often it turns out to be when we're willing to question our assumptions, stretch out of our comfort zone and try a new way of being, then the good news is this: you're in a perfect place to try to stretch into new ways of being. Yes, who would have thought a congregation might be a perfect place to do that, right? Well, maybe you did, because you came here today, whether in person or online, and I am so glad that you did. Now, it's not always super comfortable to stretch in these ways, and it can feel a bit scary, but it also brings some gifts. Can I have that slide with the cartoon? Now, this cartoon comes from the awkwardyeti.com, and I'm going to read it to you a little bit because the type might be a little small. So it begins with a brain and a red creature in a bubble with a sign that says, "Zone, sweet zone." The brain asks, "What are you doing?" And the creature, who's pushing against the side of the bubble, replies, "Stretching out your comfort zone." The brain replies, "I am not comfortable with that." So the little creature exclaims, "That's exactly the point!" The brain thinks about it and says, "So by pushing the boundaries of comfort, we actually make the comfort zone larger in the future." The brain thinks a bit more and says, "I'm a genius." The little red creature, giving the brain a look, says, "Are you serious?" Well, now that little helper might be a little annoyed that their assistance with growth wasn't recognized, but often we all need some help with stretching and growing into new ways of being, don't we? And it usually helps to have some sense of safety, some sense that we have something to rely on as we stretch towards the day or the time that we begin to share our stories and make better space to hear others' stories. When we exercise these skills in a congregation or other community, one way we sometimes talk about what we're doing is creating a culture of welcoming and radical hospitality. We can apply this both to folks who are newer and to folks who are already here. And one of the beautiful things is that we can all participate in developing and deepening a culture of radical hospitality and welcoming. That is, in developing the conscious and intentional generosity of spirit that exists in people's behaviors and attitudes that conveys that all are truly welcome. Now, of course, unfortunately, when we try to do this, we run up against that thing that I mentioned earlier, our cultural conditioning. And that can lead us to all sorts of prejudgments that tell us someone won't be interested in talking to us. It can lead us into fixating on one part of a person's multifaceted identity and thus only be interested in talking about certain things. Or it can lead us to asking questions that reflect stereotypes or prejudices that sometimes we didn't even realize we had. Unlearning this and relearning ways of interacting that help us relate more deeply is long and tricky work, which in a way is highly ironic, since we all have experiences of having multiple linked or interconnected identities. We all have experiences of being included and excluded, and of trying to find new ways to share our stories. And we all have experiences of someone welcoming us. And hopefully, we all have the experience of listening to and learning from someone else that brought us delight. But nonetheless, it is long and tricky work to set aside our prejudgments, to lean into curiosity and to interact with the other. Our wider culture is constantly telling us that others are not our neighbors. And trends for communication are getting in the way of genuine and deep connection, especially between people with different identities. For, as Audre Lorde said, we have built into all of us old blueprints of expectations and response, old structures of oppression. These must be altered at the same time as we alter the living conditions which are a result of those structures. This is internal work, not just external work. One aspect of this work can be deepening our understanding of and work with preemptive radical inclusion, which C.B. Beale shared with us a couple years ago, and which I'm hoping they'll be able to come back and work with us more on this coming year. And if I could have that second slide, it'd be great. Preemptive radical inclusion is about creating spaces with the mindset that people with diverse identities are already here. It's about creating a space that is welcoming for someone before they arrive. An example might be a congregation with no or only a couple kids deciding to create a kid-friendly worship service or religious education classes and spaces, and even offering childcare during programming. Doing these things makes it easier for families who are interested in the congregation to get interested in coming, and then to stay when they do come. They weren't already there, but the space was created for people to come in. And maybe they were there, we just didn't know it. While this is only one example, we can easily begin to imagine how this extends to other areas, like this congregation's, UUS's, decision to build this building that we're in right now in a way that emphasizes physical accessibility for people with different abilities and disabilities. So we can imagine how preemptive radical inclusion could extend to all areas of community life, as well as how there's always room to deepen and expand the work as we learn more. And we can perceive what benefits and gifts it brings. And so now, I want to do a little work with you all, and with Jenna, to help us think about and experience how we can bring radical hospitality and preemptive radical inclusion into how we get to know each other. This applies when we're greeting folks who are newer to our congregation, when we're getting to know other folks who've been here for a while but who we haven't connected with yet, and when we're helping ourselves on the day that we begin to share our stories, whether it's our first time here or whether we've been here for decades. Because all of us are, as a UUA resource on hospitality that's in the bibliography for your service says, we are all standing at the doorway of possibilities for others who could join us in this life-saving faith, at the doorway of possibility for sharing and learning and deepening. Opening that portal, that doorway, allows all of us to deepen our spiritual journeys and create a world community of peace and justice. But it does require us to stretch our comfort zone, with or without help, to share, to listen, and to ask. So, as we think about the stories we've heard today, let's begin to share what welcoming means to us. And Jenna's gonna come up and help me. Okay. So while we're talking, I'm gonna invite you all to go to menti.com and enter the code that you're going to see on the screen in just a minute. The first one, yes, is 68579074. Uh-oh, we're going to have a mic issue here. I think we might be. Okay. Let's see. Let's not be quite so comfortable with each other, okay? All right. Well, so, Jenna, now that we're not going to be quite so comfortable with each other, what does welcoming mean to you? How do you know when you're welcomed?
Well, I think when people urge me to push my chair further, no, I'm just kidding. I think there are two things. One is I come to UUS, I think like many people who come to UUS from past religious communities that were not welcoming of various parts of my identity. So big, bold commitments to inclusion and our capacities for diversity mean a lot. But the other thing, I think the real thing that welcoming means to me is a recognition that we're all in becoming. And so there are going to be parts of my identity that are partial or contradictory or messy. And so a community that can hold that patiently, quietly, make room for that, and wherever that becoming leads really feels like a space that I can be part of.
Yeah, so a lot of that is like some of that long-term work, but you get some signals about what that long-term work what might some of those signals be that you think you might pick up on?
We attended this congregation for about 4 years on and off before we became members, and every single time we came, someone would come up to me after the service and thank me for bringing first Jonah, our first kid, and then later both kids. And that was always amazing to me because they were invariably noisy and like somersaulting in the aisles and, knocking on other people's chairs or bodies in some cases. And to me, that was more than like, it's great to have a kid here. That was a real statement of, hey, we see the fullness of life that you're bringing in here, and it matters to our community. It was a gratitude for what I thought of as like a cloud of chaos, and people greeted as meaningful to the life of the community.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. I also am noticing people are actually adding some things about what being welcomed means to them. Now there's a glare on the screen, so I'm from where I'm sitting, so I'm not going to be able to say all of these, but I'm noticing that, people are noticing things like attention or interest, smiles, curiosity, acceptance, warmth, that these are things that really let us know that we're being welcomed. Those are things that are really important to me too.
What makes you feel welcomed?
I think a lot of those things, some good questions, some curious questions, the things that let me know that who I am, that my identities are, okay, good. Sorry, I'm noticing a kid out there exploring the light socket, and everything is all good. All right. But when people are, but that's one of the things that lets us know that we're welcomed, when people are noticing the things that are happening for me, or and we can kind of create that community where, okay, we're noticing maybe something's up and somebody might need a little bit of help. I think those are the things that sometimes make me feel welcomed. Yeah. As well as understanding that, there are ebbs and flows of life and people don't have infinite energy and those kinds of things, but making space for me or for other folks to enter into the space when we're able and comfortable. So, yeah. All right, I want to move on to another question, which is a little bit more complicated, and so all of y'all are going to see another Mentimeter code show up on the screen. Yes, it is 3508-6275. And by the way, if you are online watching this later, I hope that you add your thoughts to these word clouds so that we can see what y'all are thinking and ways that we can be welcoming of the folks who are watching online too. So this question is, how do you know when you have made someone else feel welcomed? This is a little harder, isn't it?
That is harder. I think, one of the strange things about coming together as a congregation once a week is we come with a really wide variety of things happening in the background of our lives that might be really different from what's happening to someone else. The joy and the sorrow and the despair and the hope, the busyness, the rest. And I feel like there have been moments when people have been willing to share some of the maybe tender or meaningful parts of their story with me, even sometimes just a small thing. But I feel like when they trust me with that, knowing that I might be in a wildly different place, or it might be really different even from what we had talked about during the service, I feel like that's a sign that they know they are welcomed. And then sometimes this is a simple thing, but this is another one of those kind of aspects of ongoing welcome. Sometimes you just catch someone's eye across the room, and there's that light of recognition, and that to me feels profoundly meaningful because we know each other, even if it's just like we know each other because we're wearing name tags. But there's a sense that we have this little burgeoning relationship that's part of the ongoing work of welcome.
Lovely.
How do you know when you've welcomed someone?
I mean, I think this is one of the great mysteries, right, of life, is when we know. But I think sometimes clues that I look for are somebody seems to want to stay and talk with me, or tells me a story or shares something, and then we can kind of interact around that. I'm also looking at some of the things that other people are putting up here, and relaxed seems to be really popular. And they smile. There are thank yous, maybe sharing food, eating together. I think is a great indication that there is some welcoming happening. So I know we could go on and on having this conversation, but as you know, I have some questions that I want to share with folks. So let's move on to that next part. Okay. Okay, so I'm glad that we had a chance to kind of talk a little bit about this. And one of the things that I find really interesting about practices of welcoming and how we know or don't know is that people are really different, aren't we? I mean, we have different cultures, we have neurological differences, we have personal preferences, we have all sorts of things. And so one of the things that can be really helpful when we start thinking about how we practice welcoming and how we get to know another is thinking about questions, about curious questions, which are going to show up on another slide in just a sec. Thank you so much, AV team. So curious questions are open-ended questions that don't really have a right answer. They're questions that are intentionally designed to be about another person's perspective or experience. And so things that might look like saying, hi, I don't think we've met yet, or I'm not sure if I know I kind of recognize your face, but I don't remember what your name is. My name is Reverend Diana. Questions like, what brought you here today? Would you be willing to tell me what made you decide to come here today? Have you had positive experiences with religious communities or congregations in the past? You might follow up with something like, what was that like for you? What do you look for in a congregation? How can I be helpful as you explore this congregation? Would you like me to show you around? And thanks for ways to get to know somebody deeper. What do you do with your time? I think a lot of times we start in this culture, sometimes we start off by asking, what do you do? Ooh. And that can be a weighted question. What do you do for a living? What do you do with your time? What brings you joy? What are your passions? Are you willing to tell me about your experience of being with us today? What did you think of this morning's service? I thought that story was really amazing, and those illustrations, wow. What a lovely necklace. Is there any story connected with it? Is there any kind of group I can connect you with? We have a wide variety. Jenna, I'm kind of curious. What are some curious questions you like to ask to get to know people better?
Reverend Diana warned me that she would ask me this question, and all I could think all week was how shy I am and how hard those conversations are. So I think I go, I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm guided a little bit selfishly by what I'm genuinely curious about. And so I really like to know what people are reading, what people are eating or cooking, and then how people are resting. I've developed this deep fascination with how people do downtime. So those are the I don't know. I mean, you can't really ask that one right away, but, second or third question in.
Those are great questions, and I love how they pick up on a lot of what we've been talking about lately around like learning to rest, right?
Yeah.
And the joy of eating,
Yes.
and living well. Those are such great questions. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So now you all get to talk to each other. Uh-oh. So I'd like you to just take a minute, if you're here in the sanctuary, and turn to somebody next to you and share. What are some questions that you like to ask to get to know someone? And if you're online, if there's somebody with you, maybe turn to them and share some of those questions. And I hope that you'll get a chance to kind of, share your questions. Please, take a minute. Okay, we're getting some great conversations going, which is absolutely delightful. Okay. I love it when I can't get you to stop talking to each other. I love it. But guess what? I'm going to ask you to keep sharing those questions over during coffee hour. But help me out here. What were a few of the questions that came up? Shout out a couple of them. How do you spend your time? What brings you joy? Listening to the birds. What birds have you heard lately? Wonderful. Thank you, Jim. Jim's been hearing all sorts of wrens, and well, these are some great questions, and obviously they can really spark some conversation. Well, if you're here after today's service, you're going to get a chance to practice with some of the folks you're around. And if you're watching this elsewhere, I hope that you'll practice with the people around you, with people in one of the UUS groups that you're part of, or that you'll come here and practice some of your curious questions some Sundays soon. Because as we get to know each other more deeply, we get to experience the joy of discovery and of our own growth. We also do something that is crucial for our wider communities and our world's health. We broaden our understanding of who our neighbor is. As I was thinking about today and what I was going to share with you and the work that we're doing on broadening and deepening radical welcome, I just kept thinking about Mr. Rogers. Both what I learned from him growing up and what I learned from watching and rewatching Mr. Rogers' documentary, Won't You Be My Neighbor? And that is the incredible power that we have to create relationships, and in doing so, to change how our community interacts with each other. I've been reminded of the power we have to shape change, as Octavia Butler says in that quote that we began with. So may we lean into the change that comes with creating deeper relationships, and as we do so, may we stretch and rest, because stretching and then resting allows us to integrate new ways of being, both individually and as communities. So may it be. Blessed be, and amen.
How we give What we do with our lives, our time, and our resources is a reflection of our values. In response to the abundance we are blessed with, every week this congregation donates generously to organizations in the community whose work aligns with our values and principles. Our community partner agency this month is Inside Out Reentry Community. Based in Iowa City, Inside Out serves people returning to Johnson County and elsewhere after incarceration. Starting before release and continuing, they provide help with reentry plans, including finding work and a place to live, connecting to community resources, and ongoing mentoring and peer support groups. In the sanctuary, the ushers will collect the offering, or you can follow the instructions on the screen for how to give online. All cash contributions go directly to our community partner agency. In addition to assisting our community partner, you might contribute towards your pledge to our society or contribute to the congregation to provide additional support for our operating expenses. You can also contribute by check using the memo line to designate the purpose. The offering is a sign of commitment to this free congregation, which is almost completely supported by the generosity of all those who join with us. As we give and receive the offering, may we be transformed by our giving, and may the world be transformed by our gifts.
Many of you know for the past 2 weeks, Nick and I have been working with 25 campers to put on Seussical Kids. And then we did that yesterday with 2 shows, and we had a lot of fun. And I'm so excited that 2 of our campers are here to share one of your songs from the show with you. This is Ely and this is Leo. Leo played Horton the elephant, and Ely played Jojo, a who, and Horton and Jojo are singing together, one on a small speck of dust. And one, are you sitting in a tree at this point?
Nope.
Not yet.
Huh. Okay. I've been guarding this dust speck for over a week, getting laughed at for thinking a dust speck can speak. We'll let them all laugh. I'll try not to mind, for I have found something that they'll never find. I'm alone in the universe, so alone in the universe. I found magic, but they won't see it. They all call me a lunatic. Okay, call me a lunatic. If I stand on my own, so be it. 'Cause I have wings, as I can fly around the moon and far beyond the sky. Well, someday soon you will hear my plea. One small voice in the universe,
one true friend in the universe,
who believes in me. Hello? Hello?
hello?
Who is this?
It's me, Jojo, the mayor's daughter.
I'm Horton, the elephant.
Are you real or are you just a really large thing?
Oh, I'm real, all right. I would state that in ink.
I think of lots of strange places as if I had wings. I love a good think.
Well, for me, that goes double.
Sometimes my things are what get me into trouble.
When you think, do you dream?
In bright colors.
Me too. And I go to strange places like Sola Salou.
When you think, do you think you can fly to the stars?
Little friend, no one else could have things such as ours. Yes, I have wings, and I can fly around the moon and far beyond the sky. You called my name and you set me free. One small voice in the universe,
One true friend in the universe.
who believes in me. Jojo.
Good night, Horn. See you at Social.
Holy moly, could anything be better than those two? That was my third time hearing it, and it just gets better. May what has been shared today help us more fully affirm our interconnection and live into love and justice. Immediately after the service, we gather in the fellowship hall and outside for conversation and community. Our discussion questions, which you might want to chat about during coffee hour, are, what questions did you come up with? Try them out. And now to close our service, we'll sing number 318 in the gray hymnal, We Would Be One. Please rise in body and spirit as you are able.
We would be one as now we join in singing our hymn of love to pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of who we are and what in us is true. We would be one as living for each other to show to all a new community. We would be one in building for tomorrow a nobler world than we have known today. We would be one in searching for that meaning which binds our hearts and points us on our way. As one we pledge ourselves to greater service with love and justice that will make us
Please join me in the words for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. All these we carry in our hearts and in our minds until we are together again.
As you go out into the world this day and this week, may you go asking curious questions and finding new ways to delight in others. Go in peace, love, and justice, living love ever more fully and fiercely into this world. Amen. And blessed, blessed be.
world.